Welcome once again to Consumer Law Hub. Here's G. I'm not a big fan of airlines. And I tell people that, they go, "Oh, you're scared to fly." No, I'm not scared to fly. Just not a big fan of airlines as a consumer. So Sean sent me note says, "Steve, check this out. Another reason to not be a big fan of airlines. An airline is telling already ticketed passengers they have to pay extra for fuel because oil prices are up or they'll be denied boarding. So you've already got the ticket in hand, and they say to get on this plane, gotta pay us some more money on top of your ticket." So this is from viewfromthewing.com. Gary Left wrote it. We're talking about an airline called Volatil, which is a European low-cost airline, apparently based in Spain. And they've crossed a line that Gary Left says he's never seen from a commercial carrier before, trying to charge customers extra for fuel, and the customers have already bought their tickets. Now they say they'll deny boarding to anyone that doesn't cough up an extra $7 to fly because the cost of jet fuel has gone up. Can you imagine jet fuel price fluctuates? Who'd have thought? And by the way, when the price drops, do they give you a refund? Apparently their contract of carriage says they can do it, but the question is if that's legal. Airlines all over the world are trying to raise fares, add fuel surcharges to new ticket purchases, and raise baggage fees. But those are for future travel, not already purchased tickets. Volata's terms say that in the event of extraordinary fuel price variation, it can apply a limited temporary adjustment before departure. However, first of all, they're supposed to tell you that during booking that this is a possibility. Keep in mind the amount can go up or down because they don't ever refund it when it goes down. And this cuts against their standard terms that fares are changeable only until booking confirmation and that the ticket price is paid in full when the booking is confirmed. And of course, an even bigger problem is, what does extraordinary mean? How do you define it? If fuel prices go up 10%, is that extraordinary? 20%. What's it take to be extraordinary? So, some people discussing this seem to think that, well, it's in the terms you agreed to it. But who reads all those terms that they attach to something like airline ticket? So, this gentleman here, Gary Lee, has flown on Volata. He says they're a low-cost carrier, but they really lean into it, and they have interesting routes that get you places you might not otherwise be able to fly. Last summer, he took them to go from Venice to Nice. That's a 283-mile flight, but no one else was scheduled on that route. And a train that does that would take you 8 hours. So airlines will more often say that increases in taxes after purchase can be collected from a customer. For instance, Ryanaire's terms say a government tax increase before departure may have to be paid, or the passenger can opt not to travel and get a refund. And EasyJet and Wizz Air, which is the name of a real airline, I kid you not. And I know some people have heard of that, but I just think it's a silly name, Wizz Air. I'm sure it probably has some deep philosophical meaning, but it makes sense that an airport fee, or a tax, is something that can get imposed after you bought your ticket that they've got to pay. And there they can say, look, here's how much it was, here's what we had to pay, as opposed to that extraordinary increase in fuel costs. So this gentleman here doesn't like the retroactive fuel cost passed through on already purchased tickets. And he points out that in the US, the Department of Transportation generally bans post-purchase price increases. And so, again, we're talking about a Spanish airline, but the fact that an airline did this is what's really making me scratch my head. So keep in mind that notices were sent out to people who bought tickets during this window of time, and they all got notices apparently in French. And so when this man flew Volata last summer to France, and for French consumers, local law also seems to be pretty clear against this. Under French law, a fuel surcharge is not a tax. So it's part of the ticket price, and that for a standalone flight, if there is a fuel surcharge, it is applied at the moment of purchase, and no later price revision can occur, which is part of the tourism code. It also seems to violate European Union price transparency rules. EU passenger rights say that the published price must include all unavoidable and foreseeable taxes, charges, surcharges, and fees, and that the passenger should not later discover further charges added to a chosen flight. So, there's a lot more to the story, but I admit this is not a US airline. This is happening in Europe, but it's the kind of thing where you look at it and go, Oh, okay. Now that somebody's got their toe in the door with a new idea, could this be rolled out elsewhere? And as he points out, well, technically, they could not do this in America. But on the other hand, they also shouldn't be doing it where they're doing it, and they're doing it. So we'll have to wait and see, because I'm always bothered when industries figure out new ways to squeeze money out of people, as noted previously on things like, I don't know, subscriptions for heated seats. Sometimes they seem borderline, near the line of ethics, right? So, don't know if anybody would try this in America. I certainly hope not. But I can tell you right now that one of the reasons I don't like flying, again, I'm not scared to fly. I've flown in big planes. I've flown in small planes. I've jumped out of a plane with a parachute on my back, and I survived. And, flying to me doesn't bother me. The experience of dealing with airlines bothers me. And I've had some really weird things happen to me. And I have actually been halfway through a trip where I flew to one place and flew from there to another place and had the person at that counter in the middle of that trip say, "You owe us more money." And I'm like, how is that possible? I've got my tickets right here. And the woman just goes, "You owe us more money." And I had to cough up $200. $100 for my ticket, $100 for somebody else's ticket. And she goes, "You gotta pay us in cash." And the reason they were requiring it in cash was so that I wouldn't attempt to put it on a card and then reverse the charges, because they knew that that's what most people would do, because they were being shaken down at an airport. Now, number one, that was not in America. That was not in the US. And number two, when I got back to my office after my vacation, I hammered out a letter on my letterhead to the people I bought the tickets from and said, "I got shaken down at the airport for $200 cash. Here's the receipt. I expect reimbursement." And I got reimbursed. But I also know that I largely probably got reimbursed because I'm an attorney, and I sent the request on my letterhead. And for other people who got shaken down similarly, I don't know how many of them got reimbursed. And, am I going to sue somebody over $200? As a matter of principle, I might. But of course, the problem here is that the people who shook me down were in another country. And so at that point, it might not be worth pursuing. However, I got my money back. But I remember at the time going, I have no choice. They won't let me board unless I cough up the ransom money. And that's the kind of thing that makes you worry about situations like this. Where the airline goes, it's $7 per ticket or you don't get on the plane. Well, 7. Are you going to argue how long are you going to argue about 7? Which is, think of them as dollars. But I think right now they're a little bit more than $1. But think like $10. $10. Say, how long are you going to argue about $10 a ticket when the plane is right there and they go, "You can't get on until you pay"? So it's a wild story. It's a wild story. So hopefully enough people will see this story and push back when they are in a situation where they have to, i.e. they bought tickets from Volat or Volata. Sorry, mispronounced a word. I hate that. But we'll see what happens. But it's a crazy story. So again, Stan, thanks for sending that. No, not Stan. Sean, I apologize. Boy, this entire video is a train wreck. No, I was getting names wrong. Sean, you should see my handwriting. It's very sloppy. From a distance, you can see that that's easily misconstrued as Stan, but it was Sean. Sean, thank you very much. Sean sent that view from thewing.com. Volata Airline tells already ticketed passengers to pay extra for fuel as oil prices soar or be denied boarding. I almost picture the captain walking up down the aisles going, "Guys, we need gas money. Come on, kicking some money. We need gas money." That's written by Gary Le. Questions or comments? Put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.